All right, everyone, welcome to our last career series today with Dale West. I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself because he is going to be able to do it best.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be with you today to talk about job interview success. Before I get into the subject of interview success, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I had a 40-year career in human resources. When I graduated from college, I had a business degree and a behavioral science minor. And living in Michigan, I figured out, well, what is the best place to go to have a position, a job? And of course, at that time, it was the big three, Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford. So I was hired by Ford and spent 2 years at Ford Motor Company. That was my first experience. At that time, it was considered to be industrial relations, the forerunner of human resources. Beyond Ford, I went to work in the hospitality industry. I went to work in the financial industry, and then eventually wound up in higher education, eventually here at Cal State. I was here at Cal State for 28 years. My final position was Assistant Vice President of Human Resources here on the San Bernardino campus. So to talk a little bit about the job interview success, the job interview process has been universally adopted by government, industry, business, nonprofits. Virtually every enterprise uses the job interview to screen candidates for positions that are open. It's been pretty much universally adopted, and it is the go-to process for selecting individuals for positions. Now, I know in the last year and a half, 2 years, the interview process, I would say, has been drastically changed from what it was in years past. In the past, individuals would come in and interview in person with an organization, and it would be face-to-face. Well, what we know now with COVID-19 is the interview process has taken on other dimensions. There's the Zoom process, there's the face-to-face process, and many, many interviews are conducted remotely. So we don't have individuals really meeting face-to-face as much as occurred historically in the job market, if you will. There's several objectives that are to be accomplished in the interview process. First and foremost, organizations are looking for candidates to fill their vacant positions. On the other side of the table, if you will, applicants, we can call them applicants, candidates, job seekers, if you will, they are looking to join an organization. So it's a two-way process, two-way exchange of information that's taking place during the interview. And we talk about success, we're talking about being able to achieve that position that you're seeking as a candidate or an applicant. When you go through the interview process and the enterprise, I use those terms interchangeably, organization, enterprise, because I think they fit all areas. The conclusion of the process is that you, as the candidate, receive a job offer. That's the goal for this. That's where you're going with the interview process. And success is determined by you receiving a job offer. That's the goal to be achieved. So let me talk a little bit about the in-person interview, even though this particular method of interviewing has diminished somewhat over the last couple of years. Prior to the interview itself, you need to consider some things before you ever arrive in the interview setting. I believe a presenter before me had talked about the resume, so I won't spend a lot of time on the resume or the cover letter. I think she's already covered those things. However, preparation is important. You need to remember that a resume represents you. And today, I believe that a screening resume receives very little attention in what we call the screening process. Your resume may receive a few minutes of review. It may be scanned by a scanner for specific words within your resume. So your resume does not receive a lot of attention, but your resume is what will get you into the interview if you are deemed to be qualified for a specific position. So when you look at your resume, take time. It's a serious step. You make sure that your resume has everything in it that you want to present to a potential employer. You make sure there are no errors, no spelling, misspellings, if you will, those kinds of things in your resume, because that's an immediate knockout factor. So your grammar, your punctuation needs to be virtually perfect in your resume. One of the things that I think is critical that I've seen in my experience in a resume is, and I know this takes time to develop a resume that is specific to the position. It's easy to look at a resume as one size fits all and submit the same resume for any position that you're interested in. That's the easy way. The better way is to tailor your resume to the position. If you know the position, the title of the position, the requirements, the duties and responsibilities, and take the time to reformat your resume for that particular position. I know it's time consuming, but in the age of computers and word processing, it's easy to modify your resume for a specific position, particularly in the public sector. If you're interested in going to work in the public sector has distinct qualifications that are usually posted somewhere in some posting, some job board, if you will. You want to make sure that your resume speaks to the position qualifications that are being advertised. A little about the cover letter. Cover letter should be precise and succinct. While a resume should be 2 pages max, your cover letter should be 1 page. Cover letter does not need to duplicate your resume. Basically, you're saying, hello, organization, here I am. I'm interested in your position, a summary statement of your qualifications, so forth and so on. So a few paragraphs on cover letter and you're done. Another important part in preparation for the interview is research. I can't emphasize this enough. Research for the organization that you are looking to join. Know something about the organization, its mission, minute. There we go. Okay. Talked about this a little bit, interview scenarios, an environment where a representative asks questions to the person seeking the position. Okay. Interview scenarios, different types of environments as you as a candidate will encounter. Prior to going for the interview, you want to do your research on the organization. What is its mission? What does it hope to accomplish? The size of the organization, those kinds of things are going to be important because one of the questions in the interview could be, what do you know about us? What do you know about our organization? You want to be prepared to respond to that question appropriately. Okay, interview scenarios, types of environments. This is what you might encounter. One-to-one interview with only a representative of the organization and you as the candidate. In-person setting with a representative at their workplace. The second scenario would be a panel interview with 2 or more members of the hiring team. So you need to be prepared for interviewing with more than one person. You walk into a room and you have 2, 3, 5, 6 people in there. Don't be amazed. This happens more in the public sector. So if you're looking to interview for a position in the public sector, a public agency, they make extensive use of panel or committee interviews. I talked a little bit about the electronic process. That's interviewing through a device, phone, Zoom, video chat, what have you. There are 2 goals for the interview process. I've talked about these already. for the candidate secure a job offer from the organization. That is when you have achieved success. The organization is looking to identify and select the most competent individual to join the organization. Documents required for the interview. There may be an application from the organization. You have to fill that out. They want to know something about you, your address, your telephone number, where you've worked, positions you've held, and so forth. So you fill out an application with the organization. Not all organizations require applications, but most of them do, because the application, if you are hired, is considered the beginning point actually of your personnel file once you start to work for an organization. Talked about the resume already. Preparation is important. It represents you. When I say represents you, a critical part of the whole process in being successful in interviewing to achieve the position that you want is you need to know yourself. You need to know who you are, where you're going, how you want to get there, how you're going to achieve your goals as a career professional. Because if you don't know who you are in the interview process and you can communicate that effectively, the organization is not going to know who you are, and they're going to move on to someone else. Talked about the cover letter already. Be precise, succinct. Introduction of candidate to the future employer, already covered that. Talked about research a little bit, and I said this takes some time to know something about the organization and the position that you're applying for. So all of these things really get you ready to engage in the interview process. Reiterate the organization, what is their mission, what it does, who their clientele is, who their customers might be, the job duties for the position, if you can determine what those are. Why does the organization exist? Reason or reasons why the organizations exist. Is it a nonprofit? Is it for-profit? Is it a public agency? Is it private enterprise? Those things are really critical. History of the organization is good. Profile of the founders, chronological account of the organization. Has it grown over years? Has it been in business for very long? Those kinds of things. Job duties. You want to know what the position requires. And then maybe something on the work environment. If you can talk to people within that organization, or you have someone that's already working in that organization, they have referred you for a position. Talk to that person and get some information if you can on the organization. The actual interview is critical. You want to separate yourself from other candidates. There are many, many individuals out there looking for positions. And I know we hear in the media that organizations are having trouble finding people. That may be true. There are hundreds of thousands, even several millions of positions that are open. But that does not stop you. Perhaps you might be the one for a particular position with an organization. So it's critical. You want to separate yourself from the other candidates to actually achieve your goal of securing a position. Okay, some basic things for interviewing. Time is important. You have to be on time. Allow for transit, parking, getting lost, those kinds of things. If you're late, you're done. I've interviewed tens of hundreds of individuals for positions from entry level to management positions, professional positions. And those interviewing for the organization, whether it's an individual or a committee, do not want to sit around and wait for a late candidate, okay? So make sure you allow yourself enough time to do that. Relax a little bit, be early if you can. If your interview is for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, be there 12:30, 1:45, so you have time. Attire, dress appropriately for the position. First impressions are lasting. So you want to dress appropriately. And I know that in certain areas of the country, we live in kind of a dress down society. and organizations are relaxing their dress codes and so forth. But business casual at a minimum, dress so that you can present yourself well to those that are interviewing you. So you want to wear the proper attire for the position. Okay, the verbal exchange. We are getting into the substance of the interview process. Okay? So the lead question, more often than not, could be tell me or tell us about yourself. Okay. This may sound like an open question that, oh, well, they just want to be nosy. They want to know something about me. No, actually, this is a time budget question. You only have a limited amount of time in the interview to make an impression and communicate who you are. Keep in mind several things, whether you're doing your resume or in the interview. I call them SKAs, basically: skill, knowledge, ability, experience, and education. Those are the areas that you want to concentrate on when you are talking about yourself. Your potential employer is not really interested in your hobbies, what you did on your vacation last year, those kinds of things. They are only interested in your work-related skills. They are looking for competency, more so today than ever before. They're looking for competency in individuals to fill a certain position. So in the tell me us about your question, be succinct. Summarize. Don't share your life story. They're not interested. Stick to a business background. No hobbies, no travel, outside interests, those kinds of things. You need to budget your time. You may only have a half hour. If you're fortunate, you might have 45 minutes. You might only have 20 minutes. So in this open-ended question, you do not want to take 15 minutes to respond to the first question, because they're going to see you as wordy, going places that you don't need to go, with information that they're not interested in. And what will happen in this case, if you absorb yourself in this particular question and use all your allotted time, you're going to find yourself in a situation where they're going to truncate the interview and say, thank you very much. So there's more here in this question than meets the eye. Why are you interested in the position? You need to know why you applied for that position. What's your interest? And you need to have an answer. I've always wanted to work for this organization. I think you're doing really great things. I hear it's a good place to work. Stay away from things like, oh, I hear you have good benefits and you have a good vacation plan. Don't want to talk about that at this point in the interview. Another question: what has been your most significant achievement to date? Know what you've done professionally. Don't be shy. There's a thin line between arrogant and competent. Okay, you want to be confident in your answers. Talk about what you've done, the achievements you've done, and the more specifics you include, the better. Broad statements are okay, but if you had a specific dollar savings in a situation that you were in, talk about it. If you were able to improve quality, talk about it. If you were able to reduce steps in a process, talk about it. Draw on those things I talked about: skill, knowledge, ability, experience. Talk about what you have achieved. Organizations today, more than anything else, they want to know what you are bringing to their table. Why should they hire you compared to someone else? So you've got to express yourself, again, succinctly and specifically as to what you have achieved so far in your career. Here it is. What value do you bring to our organization? I guess I would describe the workplace today as lean, fewer people, doing more, doing specific things to contribute to the organization. If it's for profit, they want to make money and they want to streamline their processes and how you are going to be able to contribute to that particular objective. I call this the acid test question because you need to have an answer. Going back to what I said before, know who you are. Know your strengths, know what you can achieve and what you can contribute to the organization to help them move forward. Organizations today are not staid. They're in continual motion. They're moving forward. Any organization that sits still is going to be left behind. And most of them don't want to be left behind. They want to do it better, smarter, and quicker. Employers want to know how you will contribute to their mission, success, profitability, sustainability. Sustainability is a big area these days. They want to be good citizens. They want to utilize resources effectively. They want to perhaps work on their climate footprint. All these things come into play that you didn't see in years past. Again, organizations are looking for competency. Some other questions. How do you manage conflict? Conflict occurs. Conflict is not necessarily bad, but conflict needs to be managed. If you're looking at a managerial position, clearly you will be asked to manage conflict between departments, between individuals. These things happen within organizations. And there's a way to manage conflict successfully so that conflict does not become a detriment. You may be asked to address your perspectives on confidentiality and ethics. You need to have an answer. Can you maintain confidentiality? Can you avoid talking to people and saying things that are supposed to be kept confidential, either within your department or your sphere of influence, wherever it may be? Ethics. Ethics are important. Do you have an ethical code? Will you do what's right all the time for the right reasons? That's part of ethics. What are your career goals? Where do you want to go? What do you want to be? How do you want to get there? Do you have a plan for your career? Again, you have to know yourself. What is your leadership managerial style? That question may come up. Are you a participative manager? Do you listen to subordinates? Do you let subordinates express themselves? Do you have an autocratic style where your word is law? We see those styles fading now from the workplace. It's more cooperative, collegial, collective teams working together where no one really directs absolutely in an absolute way. I mean, if you're a manager or a higher level executive, sure, you have the ability to have the final say. But the more you engage subordinates, if you're a manager, you engage subordinates, you let them speak up freely, let them present ideas, then you're going to have a better team. What do you look for in the ideal boss? Okay, we have to think about that one. What do you look for in an ideal boss? Maybe those things that I've already mentioned. Ideal boss gives me freedom, lets me do things that I like to do that contribute to the team effort, gives me challenging work. I think in surveys recently, we've seen that come up in different ways for employees. Challenging work, meaningful work, not just busy work. It's not on the list here, but you may get a question about, okay, tell us about your strengths and weaknesses. That's a common question. I don't think any of us have trouble talking about our strengths. I'm good with numbers. I'm good at solving problems. That's a good response. I'm good at solving problems. I'm good at doing analysis. I work well with people. That's interesting. Work well in a team environment. Those kinds of things are good answers. But when the question comes up, tell us about your weaknesses, that gets more interesting. And I was thinking about this because none of us really want to talk about our weaknesses. Because if I tell somebody my weaknesses, then they're going to go on to somebody else. They're not going to hire me because I have these weaknesses. So I thought of one in particular. A weakness might be that it's hard for me to say no. When someone asks me to do something, I usually take it on, whether it's a project, an assignment, I take it on. And sometimes I take on too many things, which means I have to spend my time in all these different areas and get them done within a certain time frame. So that's a possible response. It's difficult for me to say no because I want to achieve so much in the work that I do. Another one is possibly I don't have good barriers. And what I mean by that is in the positions that I've had in the past, I've always been asked to do extra things, extra projects, extra assignments. And the reason for that is, at least in my experience, is the top performers in an organization. Those are the ones that get the extra work. So if you're asked to do more things, different things, be happy, because that means that your boss, your ideal boss, knows that if your boss assigns you something to do, it will get done on time. So something like, I don't have barriers, I accept things. I'm a continuous learning individual. And I like to do things because I've learned from doing these different things. Be prepared for technical questions. Now, these are related specifically to a position. Technical questions related to a position where there are technical requirements, whether they're computer requirements, whether it's a financial position, an accounting position, those kinds of things. Technical questions related to a position. So if your career is in finance, for example, you may be asked financial questions, things like budget, financial reporting, financial reports, those kinds of things. If you're in a marketing position, you may be asked marketing questions. So these may be related to your major, say in graduate school, if you're specializing in a specific area. Special note, there are career-related specialties that transfer across all organizations and therefore are quite portable, okay? Positions like human resources, finance, marketing, customer service, budgeting, those areas of expertise are generally found in every organization. Those are staff functions. So most organizations will have those functions to support their mission. So those are transferable. As I said, my career was in manufacturing, hospitality, finance, and the public sector. So I had a very transportable kind of career in human resources, which took me to many different industries. So that pretty much concludes what I had to present on interviewing success. In essence, you make your own success. You lay your own pathway. You describe what you want to do, how you want to do it, and where you want to do it. But keep in mind that the interview process is a competition. You're up against a field of candidates. And of course, you want your particular expertise, your name to rise to the top of the group so that you're the one provided with the job offer among many others. So I wish you success in your career as you prepare in your academic work and venture out into a long career, whatever area of expertise that you decide to pursue. All the best, and I hope you achieve success. There may be questions.
I was just going to say, let's open it up for questions now, everyone. So please feel free to unmute yourself or ask them in the chat. Either Molly or I will go ahead and share your question. So it's definitely a good time to ask all of those since he's interviewed so many people. All of those really kind of weird, maybe one-off questions.
I would start it off because I'm curious. I love listening to this stuff. Mr. West, you are amazing. You've given us so much information. The question, more of a comment and then a follow-up by you. Um, Looking for a new position, that's like a part-time job, maybe a full-time job. You have to do a lot of research and paying attention, and you can't take it flippantly, can you? You really have to focus.
That's certainly true. I think research shows that when we got into the pandemic, people were losing their jobs left and right. And I think it was kind of a bolt out of the blue that the business and industry really tightened up everything, reduced everything. They weren't open for business. They started laying people off, dismissing people across every industry almost. So I think it was a surprise to people that you really have to put energy into a job search. Most people work or were working 40-hour weeks. That's the standard work week in America. Other countries are experimenting with 32-hour work weeks, less than 40. But here in America, 40 hours is the standard work week. So don't think that if you're not currently employed, you're looking for a position, particularly a career position, a professional position, a managerial position, that you've got to put the work in, put in those things I mentioned, research. It may require you to relocate. So the more energy you put in, the more effort you put in, the more successful you might be. And I know it can be discouraging. I've seen some things on the internet where people say, I sent out 150 resumes. I got 2 responses and 1 interview. My best advice is do not be discouraged. Keep at it, keep pushing, keep doing it. You're marketing yourself until you are successful. Don't give up hope. There's a position out there for you, and you'll feel much rewarded when you achieve that position that you've been looking for. But yes, it's going to take, I mentioned it takes effort to redo a resume, to customize a resume for a position where you have certain words that have to match up to the job announcement, particularly in the public sector. So put in the effort. It's not something where, Monday through Friday, you can wake up at noon, put in a couple of hours and expect to get that position that you want. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Doesn't work like that. You have to be specific. How about those that, a lot of folks have transitioned working at home. Some positions have been moved at home. So remote work seems to be fairly popular. Is it okay for someone to maybe expect an opportunity to remote work? Is that realistic, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think one of the things we've learned from COVID-19 is our concept of work has been changed. It has been significantly changed. And I don't think it's a secret that the dynamic has shifted. Prior to COVID, it was an employer's world. Employers had many, many applicants for each position. Now, they're down to a few applicants for each position. So from what I've read, people enjoy, for the most part, working at home. They can be connected by technology. It's kind of funny, but people can work in their pajamas. They can work at their own pace as long as they're productive. So even some of the commercials in the media, one in particular says, I only want to work 2 days a week. I want to work from home. I want benefits. I want the organization to pay for my education. And then at the bottom it says you're hired. So employers have had to bend how they view applicants, how they view candidates, how they view the world of work. Prior to COVID, working at home was a luxury. Now, for people looking at positions, it's almost a necessity. They don't want to go back into the office for whatever reason. They may be contaminated with COVID, or they like working at home, or they can cut down on childcare. So the world of work has been turned upside down. One of the things I want to say in that preliminary interview is don't necessarily jump into benefits, salary, perks, and pay, and that kind of thing. Save that for if you call back for a second or third interview. There's plenty of time to talk about benefits, to talk about those kinds of things. The first interview, you want to talk about your skills, your competency. The goal of the first interview, besides getting a job offer, is to get a second interview. So be careful with that first interview. But if you're interested in those kinds of things, find an organization that's open to working at home, if not full-time, a portion, come into the office maybe a day or two. And employers I see now are more accommodating because essentially they have to accommodate candidates. That's not the way it used to be.
I have a couple student questions. So the first one is, how is the preparation for internal interviews different from external opportunities?
I think there are a lot of similarities. You probably don't have to do the research piece because hopefully the organization that you're working for, you know all about it. Similarities, competency. One of the things that comes up with an internal candidate for promotion, these are usually promotions, is that you still want to market yourself because again, you may be competing with other individuals in your department or other departments for the same position. So you want to show competency, you want to show interest, preparation. I talked about having no barriers. What have you learned in your current position? What do you bring to a higher level position? How have you prepared yourself? If it's a supervisory or managerial position, you want to show those skills, whether you've taken classes, you've been to seminars, you've developed supervisory managerial skills. If it calls for greater technical skills, what you've done to enhance your technical skills. So you really want to show a pathway of preparation if you're inside. A lot of times I think internal candidates make the mistake of saying, they go into the interview process and they say, oh, you know me, I've been here for 10 years, you know me, I work over here, you see me around, so here I am. That's a mistake because they may not know you at all. Don't assume that they know you and know of your work. So pretty much the same process, except I would say the research piece, you don't have to spend time on the research piece because So because you don't have to do the research, spend your time in preparation and showing that you're qualified, that you have prepared yourself. So I would say the preparation takes place of research in that particular instance. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so our next question is, offices are more open concepts now, and you're not always in an office or conference room for the interview. How do you best maintain focus in that kind of setting?
Well, if you're in an area where there's noise and people and things happening all around you, the one word is focus. You're just going to have to ignore those things around you and those disturbances. Focus on the questions, focus on your answers, and just not be aware of distractions because when things happen, you can't be interviewing and looking around. What was that? Or focus on the interview. Eye contact is really important in any interview setting. Looking at the interviewer or the interviewers, if it's a group or a panel or committee. So don't be distracted. That's important. I mean, if the fire alarm goes off, then you do what they do, follow them. But other than that, keep your composure. Answer interview questions the same as you would if you were in a quiet setting. That can happen. I think most organizations are savvy enough to provide a place that there are no distractions, there are no noises, and there's some semblance of privacy. I think most of them know that.
Thank you. So relating back to the earlier question about internal versus external hiring, someone was asking if they know you on your interview panel, how best to prepare for that? And should you make references to that relationship while you're doing the interview?
I don't think it's a good idea to go into an interview as an internal candidate and say, you know who I am. That's an assumption. So that's probably not a good place to start. Again, you want to rely on your competency, your preparation, your commitment. Inside candidates who have a track record, so to speak, based on length of time. You've shown loyalty to the organization, commitment, the fact that you have presented your name for a position, hopefully it will gain a promotion, that you have commitment. You're not looking on the outside. Hopefully there are opportunities, and organizations can be peculiar in many ways. Some like to bring people in from the outside. That has a certain value, bringing in new expertise, new ideas, so forth. There's a benefit to promotion from within. I always thought promotion from within was a morale builder, that people feel they can have a career without going across the street, so to speak. So I think you stress preparation, commitment, loyalty, that you see this as a place where you can continue your career for years to come. Those kinds of things go far. Another thing on the inside, and I talked about arrogance versus confidence. You might want to bring up your reviews, your performance appraisals. Most organizations have a performance appraisal process. And I don't think it's out of bounds to say, in my current position, I've had whatever you've had, outstanding, excellent, good reviews. Hopefully they've been at that level. I've had excellent reviews in my performance over the last X months or years. I've made a contribution in my position. And by the way, not in the words like that, you're thinking, by the way, I feel that I'm qualified for this position. And here again, here's what I bring. I know the organization, I know the structure, I know the departments, I know what the mission is, and I think that gives me an advantage in this position. That's helpful.
Wonderful, thank you. So I think we have time for probably one more question. What tips would you give to someone who wants to break out from one industry to one that they have no previous experience in?
Realistically, there are a lot of variables in that question. I talked about the transferable disciplines. Those are transferable, but if say you're in marketing and you want to go into finance or something, again, preparation, taking courses in the area that you wish to pursue. This may sound weird, but there's always the luck factor. Some people interview very well, and they can sell and market themselves to anybody. And those individuals respond to questions with a very can-do attitude. When they're given the hypotheticals like that, well, wait a minute, you're applying for this position. I don't see anything in your resume that says you've done any of this. And you go into this, well, I understand that, but your industry is very attractive to me. I think I can make a contribution. Again, it's all about contribution and value. I think I can make a contribution to your organization. I've had good success in my academic work. I've taken a lot of different classes, not just in my major, but I've taken other classes. I'm always interested in learning. I learn very quickly, and I've had a record of success in these places where I've worked, and I know it's not in your industry, but I think I bring those things to your organization. If you were to bring me in, I would bring those things, and I feel I would transition very well to what you're doing here, your goals, your missions. Thank you very much. I think that's the best you can do when you have no experience or no expertise in an industry that you're looking to go to. The other thing is look at the level of the position. I think in my experience, the only people that transfer in at the top without any experience are CEOs. And let me just mention that in the pyramid structure of organizations, entry-level positions, mid-level positions require people to do technical kinds of things, okay? Think in your mind of a pyramid. At the top 10% of that pyramid, those are individuals that do not necessarily contribute with technical skills. They're visionaries, they're structural people, they know how to get things done. I mentioned I started my career at Ford Motor Company. Here's my example. Alan Mulally worked for Boeing, building airplanes. He was recruited by Ford Motor Company to be the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. One of the questions they asked Alan Mulally when they interviewed him for the CEO of Ford Motor Company was, "You don't know anything about cars. You've been making airplanes." And his response was, "Boeing airplanes have upwards of 300,000 parts in them. Ford Motor Company cars have like 3,000 parts." Do you have any other questions? He was hired by Ford Motor Company, took them out of the red ink. They took no money from the federal government, and he brought them back to profitability. So CEOs, I think, can transition anywhere because they are at the top, they're visionaries, they know how to get things done through organizations and departments. So if you're looking at transitioning, you may have to start at a lower level than where you were in the previous industry, but if all those things are true, that you're marketable and effective and quick learner, you should progress. They'll see your talent and hopefully you'll be rewarded.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, well, I think we might have time for just one last question, and then we'll let the students go off to class if you don't mind. Last one is, do you have any tips for a person applying for a position one level higher than their current position?
No, I think my experience, people don't usually apply for lateral positions unless they want certain experience in a lateral position. I think it's human nature to want to be promoted. It's career rewarding to be promoted. One level up should not be a problem. It may be a different position, have different requirements. One level up. Now, if you look, if you're at a certain level and you want to apply, for the executive vice president, that may not work for you very well. But one level up should not be a problem. Most positions have some overlap. So in your current position, you may be doing certain things. The next level will have some of that and some new things. So one level up should not be a problem. Go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, can't say enough. Thank you enough for all of our students, undergraduate and graduate. I know this was super useful for everyone. We can always use a refresher on all of these things. So everyone make sure to take your screenshot. We will be posting this on YouTube next week. So have a wonderful evening, everyone.